Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to make a classic artisan sourdough loaf bread recipe. This is yummy, it's healthy, it's classic, and it's flavorful. So first things first, you are going to take your sourdough starter and give it a good feeding 12 hours before you're basically ready to make this bread. And this jar that you see here is actually from a company called Teemars. They sent me a bunch of sourdough essentials, such as this sourdough glass jar, a thermometer band, a feeding time and level tracker, which is great. I absolutely adore this. It came with a breathable cloth cover, and it also came with a nice lid, so if I want to store it long term in the refrigerator. It also came with some silicone proofing baskets, an oval one and a round one, a silicone spatula, a silicone brush, a trimming knife, or a lot of people like to call it a lame, and a metal bench scraper. So quite a few things in the kit. I will link everything down below for you. So if you want to get this sourdough starter kit, I highly recommend it. I love all of the items that came in it. And it's perfect for a beginner or someone who's /intermediate like me. So the first thing you're going to do is, on a scale, you are going to clear it out and put it in grams, and you're going to put in there 250 grams of bread flour and 250 grams of good all-purpose organic flour. So that totals up to about 50 grams. Then you're going to clear out the scale and add about 350 grams of room temperature filtered water, 70 grams of sourdough starter that was freshly fed within 12 hours, and 10 grams of good salt. I use Himalayan sea salt, but just a good salt for that. Once you do that and everything is in the bowl, you are going to take your damp fingers or use the silicone spatula and give it a good stir. The dough is going to feel a bit wet and moist and not very workable, and that's going to change with time. So be patient. It is a little bit messy in the beginning, so be mindful of that. But I find working with wet hands, I'm starting with a spatula at first, but then have to literally get in there with wet hands to get everything combined. So once that happens and everything is combined, you're going to let it rest for about 30 minutes. So from beginning to end with this recipe, you're going to need at least 24 hours. So after you have all of the dough combined and it rested for 30 minutes, you're going to do a form of stretch and folds with the dough, lifting the edges around the dough, around the bowl. So you're going to work in clockwise and stretch the dough, fold it over, and work your way around the bowl. You're going to do this about 3 to 4 times around the bowl, and then you're going to let it rest for 30 minutes in between. You're going to do this again another 3 times. So you're going to do 3 sets of this. So 3 sets of stretch and pull, rotating around the bowl clockwise, and let it rest 30 minutes in between. I know that's a lot, but stick with me. I'm kind of going through the process. You can see I'm doing this as I'm getting ready for bed. It's later in the day, and I'm doing this at night so I can do most of the bulk fermentation and the proofing of this and getting this dough to double in size throughout the night while I'm sleeping. So once you've done this a series of 3 more times, you're going to cover the bowl in between with a plate, a dinner plate. And then when you're finally done with all of the stretch and pulls and you want it to double in size, you're going to cover it again for the end of the bulk fermentation. And this is going to be about 12 hours it should take, depending on the temperature of your home. So if your home runs cooler, it's going to take a little longer. And if your house runs warmer, it's going to be shorter. Okay, It is the next day, and as you can see here, I floured my counter and I'm removing the dough out of the bowl and I'm shaping it into a ball. And I'm going to cover this with a glass bowl or any type of bowl and let it rest for about 20 to 30 minutes. And then after that, I'm going to go ahead and shape it again. And I'm going to take a bench knife and flip it out of the flour surface and put it into my proofing basket. Once this is in the proofing basket, I like my dough to be super chilled for me to be able to put some pretty designs on the top. Plus, I want this to be able to be nice and warm and fresh for dinner time the next day. So I don't want it to get too over fermented and lose its shape or anything like that. So I'm going to go ahead and put it in the refrigerator. So I'm going to flour the surface, put it in the proofing basket, cover it with literally a Meyer's bag or a shower cap or plastic wrap, something like that so it doesn't dry out, and then put it in the refrigerator until I'm ready to bake it. Once I'm ready to bake it, I'm going to take it out of the proofing basket, and then I'm going to cut deep holes with my knife. So that little knife that I was showing you or talking about in the beginning, the trimming knife, or some people like to call it other things, but basically a razor blade of sorts. And I'm going to make a deep cut into it and then make my designs before I put it into my warm Dutch oven. Now, before I use the lame or the razor blade or whatever you want to call it, I did sprinkle a little bit of flour on top. I've heard people using rice flour, and I've never used that. So let me know in the comments below if you have. And here's my pretty design. And I'm going to take basically my Dutch oven's going to warm in my oven. Preheat my oven at 500. So now this is nice and warm. I'm putting it on parchment paper and dropping it in the Dutch oven. And then I'm going to bake this in the oven at 500 degrees for about 20 minutes. Then I'm going to lower it to 450 and bake for another 10. I'm going to take off the lid and bake it for another additional 10 minutes. So now you have a total of 40 minutes that it's been baking in the oven. You're going to remove it and pull it out of the Dutch oven and let the bread cool on a rack for about 2 hours before slicing. You can store this bread for up to 4 days, and it is delicious with some warm butter or anything like that. If you enjoyed this recipe, give me a thumbs up, and I'll